Sushant Sareen, how does Pakistan's mess impact India? Earlier, India and Pakistan were hyphenated in the Indian narrative, and internationally now India has moved on. India competing and comparing or seeking to compare with China and not really bother as much about Pakistan. But if the country continues to blow up in terms of inflation in the way that things are, and things get much worse as seems likely, what does that mean for India in your view?
Rahul, it means very little for us in the short and the medium term at least. And in the long term, we don't know how it's going to play out. If Pakistan, the economy continues to tank in Pakistan, the country is not going to disappear. It's not going to cease to exist. There will be tremendous problems. It will weaken Pakistan tremendously, which is excellent for us. It's excellent for us because a weak Pakistan is less of a nuisance and a headache for us. And perhaps also less of an international migraine, to use Madeleine Albright's words. That's one part of it. The second part of it is, have you seen any lowering of the unremitting hostility, hatred towards Hindus and Indians by Pakistan? So why are we jumping the gun and trying to, you know, this Mother India concept that we have, that no, we must save Pakistan from itself. We can't save it, number one. I don't think we have the capacity, nor should we. And we should not, because the worst thing in the world to do is to, you know, pull out an enemy when he is drowning. I think the best thing to do is sit on the riverside with popcorn in your hand and let your enemy suffer the consequences of their own actions. Nothing which is happening in Pakistan is anybody else's doing. It is their own doing. It is their own elite capture. It is the own rapacious bureaucracy and military which they have. It is their own overweening ambitions and adventurism which has led them to this pass. They were the ones who wanted to break the shackles of slavery in Afghanistan. They are going to pay the wages for it. Why should we bother about it?
Okay.
And let's not kid ourselves by thinking that no, you know, the Taliban will come into India. Let the Pakistanis handle it. And their nukes are not just India's problem. They are the world's problem. So let the world come in on that and handle it. Let's focus on our energies, on our own development and our own progress.
Okay, Sushant Sareen taking a position on the extreme right. Sit back on the riverside, watch your enemy drown, have popcorn and whatever else it is that Sushant wants to have late in the evening. Then you've got the others who will say, no, this is an Indian neighbor. This has been part of an earlier concept of Akhand Bharat. We can't see Pakistan drown. Just on the basis of humanity and compassion, we must help. Ajay Veer Jakar, you heard what Sushant Sareen says, essentially that this mess is frankly of Pakistan's own making. A lot of the adventurism, excessive spending on military, capture by the elites happened because of the doings of Pakistan's own establishment. Why should we now try and help them?
So, I'm sitting in my village now in Punjab on the border with Pakistan, and I'm really terrified of a bankrupt state in my neighborhood of Pakistan. And I agree with Sushant when he says that it's a mess of their own making. But I disagree with him when he says about a economically shattered Pakistan, because we have witnessed state-sponsored terrorism in the past. But let me tell you, terrorism stemming from non-state actors in a country which is bankrupt, where people are hungry, is a breeding ground for jihadi terrorism, and it's going to be far, far worse. We've not witnessed it. You look at the Horn of Africa, and you look at other places in Africa, you will understand that non-state actors are far worse than state actors when they sponsor terrorism. And I have a personal interest. I'm from Punjab. We are on the border. We want better relations with Pakistan. We want an economically prosperous Pakistan because Punjab is a landlocked state. We want trade with Pakistan because Punjab has suffered a lot because of state-sponsored terrorism stemming from across the border. But our markets which could make Punjab prosper are Central Asia and Afghanistan. Let me tell you, Rahul, Kabul is closer to Amritsar than Lucknow is. Central Asia is closer to Punjab and Amritsar and Ludhiana and where my village is than we are, in fact, half the distance of what we are to South India. So we really must hope for a...
So that's very interesting. We've heard two extreme
let me tell
positions.
You one more thing. See, when Nawaz Sharif campaigned for prime ministership, I think so in 2013, he publicly said in his public meetings, we want better relations with India. And I doubt if any other prime minister in Pakistan will ever have the guts to say that. And his brother is prime minister now, so we've got to look at everything. But I think at the end of the day, the government has a better long-term view of what should happen. I don't know if I don't personally think we even have the financial wherewithal to help Pakistan, not default. Let's put it that way. And China should be allowed to do it, I think. Let them spend their money.
Okay, so you've heard a hawkish view. You heard a much more dovish perspective. I want to go across to Ambassador Parthasarathy and see where he comes out on this. Mr. Parthasarathy, you've been in Pakistan. You understand the ins and outs of Pakistani society and politics better than most. Should India sit back on the riverside, have popcorn, or step in to actively help, because a bankrupt state is the most fertile ground for jihadi terror, a lot of which could potentially come India's way?
Look, I don't want to be an unwanted guest in Pakistan's problems. I have no problem in discussing cooperation with them economically, but let them first come and make the request. They will not. They'd rather starve. And I'm particularly speaking of my friend from Punjab. You live this side of the border. I've been there. I've lived and seen it. Punjab on the other side of the border is quite different. Large portions of Punjab are becoming fundamentalist. So you have to bear that in mind. Now, coming to the problem on hand, nobody is asking us to get involved. Pakistan has created its own problem. It has accumulated a debt of $100 billion. Its foreign exchange reserves are presently $3 billion. They had come down to 1. So Pakistan has to set its economy right. And I am a firm believer, with due respect to my friend from Punjab. I have served in the army and lived in Punjab, and I fought a war with Pakistan in '65 before he was born. The fact of the matter is that they would rather starve than take aid from India, and I'm not rushing in to provide it. Let them ask. The second point is that Pakistan itself now is going through a trauma. With regard to its repayments, I think what is going to happen is that the IMF will come through, and then you will get contributions from Saudi Arabia, UAE, Asian Development Banks and various other places to keep them going. But as Sushant says, keep them at a tight leash. And that's precisely what the World Bank will do. There is no cause for us, when we have our own problems, to rushing into a country which does not want us.
Now, that's interesting that you make the point that Pakistan will not seek...
Let me
go on, sir.
Yes, let me complete. I know Nawaz Sharif quite well. Nawaz was the person who played hell with the communal problem in Punjab. On the contrary, his brother, presently in charge, did not involve himself in that sort of activity. So let's be real. If Pakistan asks us, which they won't, we can step in the way we can. But otherwise, let the international community deal with it. Right at the present moment, the Pakistan army is busy in other things, and let them be kept busy on that.
Okay.
Let's also remember that, talking to Punjab, there are two major terrorist groups, the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed. One is based in Lahore and the other is based in down south.
In fact, I asked this question to Pakistan's Foreign Affairs Minister of State in the World Economic Forum at Davos, and instead of even responding to the question about whether they'd require or seek India's help, she launched into a diatribe against India and the Indian government. So that reflects what Ambassador Parthasarathy is saying, which is that they will not seek India's help. Just take a quick listen in to what Hina Rabbani Khan told me in that conversation, and then we'll continue this discussion.
Pakistan has learnt many lessons from the past. Okay, Pakistan is now on a trajectory which is towards progress and development on that particular count. Pakistan is moving towards a progressive Pakistan. Unfortunately, and I say this with a heavy heart, because you are my neighbor, if I feel that as a polity it's taking the wrong direction, it will come to burn my house also. Unfortunately, I feel what is happening in India is that a country which was living on secular credentials and had immensely benefited from it, coexistence of all religions, and have immensely benefited from it, is now making sure that this country is only habitable for a certain religious people only. Okay?
That's not true.
You see, you can say that, but you know Rana Ayub?
She's just one character.
Okay, she's just one character.
So there are so many people who don't like your government.
That freedom, freedom, rights of freedom, group in the US has put India as a very...
if I may finish. No, but the Guruji made an important point. Look at the state of minorities in your country, which you refuse to
Rahul,
answer,
this is the difference. When you say this to me, I say my country is committed to improving the fate of those minorities, and we do laws every day to make sure that the minorities' lives...
Look at the percentage of minorities.
Will be improved. In your country, you do legislation to make sure that their lives get worse. I am not at all saying that we are wonderful on that count and we have no problems and we don't need to. We have serious problems on that count. But the government and the people, and the government at least, is committed to dealing with those problems, and every day we try to build protective laws through the police and through legislation, protective walls through legislation to protect the minorities, not the other way around, right? So we, internal politics aside, I feel right now very bad for the fact that these two countries should hold this entire regional project back.
Ali Sarwar Naqvi, you're at the Center for International Strategic Studies, the CISS in Pakistan. The likes of Ajay Veer Jhakar and many other influential voices in Punjab saying India should come to its neighbors' aid. The likes of Sushant Sareen, Ambassador Partha Sarthi saying, keep Pakistan on a tight leash. This is a mess of Pakistan's own making. India should just sit it out. How do you, in Pakistan, given your role internally and the role that you've played externally in the past, look at the question of what happens next to Pakistan?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to explain our perspective, and my perspective particularly. You see, I am amused by the comments that I have heard so far, because it looks like everything is gravitating around India. I mean, India doesn't figure in our thinking in regard to the economic crisis or the debt crisis or whatever it is. There are at least 30 countries on the verge of default right now, as estimated by the World Bank. So this kind of thing goes on, and we will have to deal with it. Yes, that's true. That's our own creation. The problem is of our own making. But we have to deal with it. I hope that the IMF will come to our help, and then the other friends will also help us develop things, and then we have to focus on increasing exports, in getting more remittances from our community abroad. And domestically, we have to cut down on domestic deficits of over expenditure as well as of poor tax collection. So, this is the economic recipe and the parameters around which the government will have to work. India doesn't come into the picture. I don't know how this idea has germinated. Yes, if there is economic relations with India, then we can have better trade, and that will be to our benefit in terms of trade. So that is all that I can see. So I don't know why India is taking it upon itself to help bail
No, we're not.
Pakistan.
Actually, we're discussing how the mess in Pakistan affects India, because there are nuclear warheads in our neighborhood, the potential fear of jihadi general taking over. We've seen, aggressive generals take over in Pakistan in the past, launched the kind of adventurisms that the late Parvez Musharraf did and had to pay for. The people and the government of Pakistan paid for the adventurism in Kashmir. But we've seen crazy things happen in Pakistan, and you're in our neighborhood, and therefore, sir, we are concerned.
yes, you are concerned. The nuclear bomb and the nuclear weapons program was developed because of what India did. We are a reluctant nuclear power because we were forced to do it. Secondly, regarding this whole jihadi business, they are a fringe. They get no votes in the elections and they continue to create trouble. We have to deal with it. We have launched the biggest military operation against terrorism, terrorists and all that. So I think the large body of Pakistan, electorate, Pakistani population is not extremist, it's not violent, and the whole image of Pakistan that has been created in India is not fair to Pakistan.
Ajit Ranade, you're of the view that the collapse of Pakistan is not good for India. Explain that to Sushant Sareen, who said he'd rather just let his enemy drown, sit back and have popcorn.
Well, Rahul, Ukraine has a population of something like 42 million. Already the refugees in different parts of Europe, including Germany, are far in excess of, I think, 1 or 2 million, much more than the Syrian refugee crisis, which was some time back. And it's a big, big concern and growing concern. Now, Pakistan has 232 million people. And often when we talk about Pakistan, we tend to treat it as if it's one kind of, the word Pakistan as if it has one identity. We need to distinguish between the government, the military, the elites, as Hamid Mir also mentioned, and the people of Pakistan. That's one. Secondly, Pakistan, I think, is undergoing 4 mega crises, which all have come at the same time, which is unprecedented. There is the climate crisis, where 1/3 of the country was underwater, and even to this day, something like 5 million children are near, stagnant or without water. They're not only in danger of disease, but actually survival. You have the climate crisis, then you have the economic crisis, as various speakers have said, the foreign exchange down to less than $3 billion. India's, by the way, is 600 billion by comparison, and inflation running at 50%, and debt is 60 trillion rupees. Debt has gone up by 2,000%. 20 times in the last 20 years. 1/4 of it is just in last 1 year. That's the economic crisis. The third is the terrorism crisis, because the pro-Taliban elements in Pakistani society feel emboldened by the government next door in Afghanistan, and they feel they have a great chance of taking over, even though our friend from Pakistan said it's fringe elements. But that's the third. We hear about terrorist incidents all the time. And the fourth is a political crisis. A dismissed government. Imran Khan has been disallowed to stand for election or hold elected office for the next 5 years. There is a talk of his imminent arrest. 2 provincial governments were close to being toppled. So political crisis, economic crisis, climate crisis, and terrorism crisis, all at the same time and of unprecedented magnitude. Now, you think, India can't just sit next to, this. I'm just talking about the fact that we have 231 million people next door. We give, there's 2 ways of looking at it, an instrumental view and a humanitarian view. We have given aid to Sri Lanka, we have given aid to Syria, we are giving aid to Turkey, and this is people to people. We have, by the way, invited Pakistan to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meetings in May. This is an invitation that went from our foreign minister to their foreign minister. So I think we need to, that's the instrumental view, that if we don't do something, we may have a huge refugee crisis on our border. But there's also a humanitarian view. Let me also say that India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka is one unique region in the world where 95% of our foreign trade goes to regions outside our region. No other region in the world has this kind of a distinction. There is so much scope. They say that India-Pakistan trade, which goes through Dubai, is roughly $10 to $15 billion and growing. But I think we have to take a little more pragmatic view. It is going to be in our interest. What do we lose by offering humanitarian aid? What's the downside? I think we need to distinguish between Pakistani people.
Okay, Sushant Sareen, we have nothing to lose. As the big brother, you have a big heart. Pakistan is likely going to reject it. The foreign minister, we saw how she reacted. That's how the prime minister and the army could react as well. And this is not a normal situation. There are 4 different kinds of crisis: climate, economic, terrorism and political. We helped Syria, which is so far away and is a basket case by itself. We've invited Pakistan to the SCO. Therefore, there's no harm in playing the Bada Bhai and at least offering to help.
Number one, I think you should have all received your comeuppance from what the Pakistani on your show said. And I don't know why you are still insisting on it. Somebody doesn't want your help, but you want to give it. Number one. Number two, you are asking what's the harm in giving it. And my question is, what do you get out of it? Nothing. Number three, Mr. Ranade seems to think that the people of Pakistan can be distinguished from the state of Pakistan. Does he have any empirical information on what the people of Pakistan think about the people of India? And which is why brings me to Mr. Jakhar, that Mr. Jakhar, his heart is flowing with the milk of human kindness and humanitarianism, and he is feeling for the people across the border. The day those guys get a chance, people like Mr. Jakhar, who's a Hindu from Punjab, is the first one who's get his neck chopped off. So I think we should be very careful about what we wish for. I really wish before people start talking about Pakistan, they would read up on Pakistan a lot more than what they do. Just reading up a couple of newspapers from India is not enough to understand what is happening inside Pakistan, what the psyche of the people is out there. Number three, and I think this is very important, we keep talking about, the Taliban have got emboldened. Who emboldened the Taliban? Did I embolden them? Or did the Pakistan army and the Pakistani state, their current defense minister, their current prime minister, even today, their foreign minister, Bilawal Bhutto, have been saying that no, the Taliban are good people, it's only the Pakistani Taliban who are bad people. They're part and parcel of the same whole. And yet you want me to distinguish it? These are the guys who raised them. These are the guys who armed them. These are the guys who gave them sanctuary. Now if they're biting them back, what should I do? Why should I go and risk my resources, my people, all of that? I should build bigger walls, better walls on my border. I should have more capacity to go inside and beat the hell out of them if they try and cross over. And please don't give me this thing that the Pakistanis will simply fold up. If the Pakistanis are interested in saving themselves, then they will fight it. Why should I fight it for them? Are they any well disposed to with me, even with all their problem? You heard this Pakistani. But I can show you a whole lot of other Pakistanis who will spew all sorts of venom on India right now. Number one. Number two, have they changed any of their policies? Whether it is on Khalistan, they are still instigating violence in Punjab. Whether it is pushing in drugs in Punjab, they are still doing it. Is Mr. Jakhar telling me that this is happening without the support of the Pakistani state, which his heart is so bleeding for that he wants to go and help these guys? I can't understand.
Ajay Jakhar, respond to Sushant Sareen, whose most cogent argument is that Pakistan hasn't changed its policies. Nothing is evidenced before us to suggest that there's any material change in Pakistan's attitude and behavior.
Jakhar, one more question.
Yes.
No, he is, living, I don't know what dreams he has about going to Central Asia, etc., etc. Number one, there is no market for Punjab out there. Punjab has a much more lucrative market, even though Lucknow might be a little further off. It has a much more lucrative market in Lucknow, in Bombay, in other places in India. Punjab was the most prosperous state of India before Punjabis screwed it up completely with, with the kind of toxic politics in Punjab. So please don't give me that, you go to Afghanistan and you will be able to sell a lot of your stuff out there.
Listen, Rahul, we need to clarify something very clearly. I never said we help Pakistan. I said we need a prosperous Pakistan for India to prosper also. And like Mr. Ranade said, most trade in the world takes place with neighboring nations. You look at North America, you look at Europe, and you look at all those places. To just say that we don't want to help, I said we don't even have the capacity to help. Look at India's situation, we don't have the capacity to help. All I'm saying is that we have witnessed state-sponsored terrorism, and non-state actors coming out of a weakened Pakistan is going to be far worse. That was my observation. And as far as my neck is concerned, I look after it. I'm on the border with Pakistan. We've lived through terrorism years, and we live through it, and we know how to deal with them. And don't deride and don't abuse Punjabis. I don't know where you are from. I think you are a racist person, and you should not be allowed on shows to say that we bankrupted our state and stuff like that. Please stick to the topic.
What else is happening in Punjab right now? Are you telling me Punjab is the most hip and happening state? Is that what you're telling me? Who invests in Punjab anymore?
You don't want to come, don't come. We are very happy in Punjab. We are proud Punjabis, and we are very proud of where we are.
Proud Punjabis. That is why all of the youth of Punjab is leaving, voting with their feet, and wanting to go outside Punjab and make their lives outside Punjab, because they don't see a future for themselves in Punjab.
Don't tell us what we are thinking. You're telling everyone what Pakistan people are thinking. You're telling us now what Punjabis in India are thinking.
Even I am a Punjabi, for your information. right? I have family in Punjab. I keep visiting Punjab. So don't tell me, that you know everything about Punjab and everybody
Okay,
else.
I
is
don't-
ignorant
I
about it.
claim to know everything. All you're saying is you're proud Punjabis, and I'm aghast at the words that you
Even
use
I am
about
a very proud Punjabi, but I am ashamed of what Punjabis have made of Punjab.
Okay, I don't want to get into this debate about who's the bigger and the better Punjabi. Let's leave that for another day. But the fact is, Ajit Ranade, as this discussion shows, we have enough problems of our own. And the argument can be focus on fixing those. There's very little to gain by getting involved with the mess in Pakistan. India is on a growth trajectory. You can try and build your infrastructure, your physical muscle, the roadways that we are building. Focus on that. Don't get involved in Pakistan. A, because as our guest from Pakistan showed, they don't want your help, they don't need it, they'll diss it even if you offered it. So B, focus on your own problems, grow elsewhere, just let Pakistan be.
Well, Rahul, first of all, I said there are two ways of looking at it, instrumental and a humanitarian. See, India is also aspiring to a great power status, or at least, a larger than what we are not just a bit player. We are currently the president of G20. Now, if 4 million children are on the verge of dying in Pakistan, surely we can do some humanitarian aid. We are exporting $60 to $70 billion of refined petroleum and diesel based on imported crude from Russia. Now, Pakistan is a major importer of petrol. I mean, we'll make the same profit whether we are selling it to Europe or America.
You're an economist and you have your heart probably in the right place. But as you just saw, when Ali Sarwar Naqvi was speaking, they don't want your help, sir. He's saying, keep your help in your house. I don't want it.
Well, let's see if the foreign minister of Pakistan attends the SCO meeting in India, and then we'll see from there. I think I've heard voices both from the leadership, right from the Prime Minister of India, that there is desire to actually have better relations with Pakistan. But I'm not mixing up the geopolitics with the current huge crisis in Pakistan. I'm saying we have 231 million people there. I mean, it's the fifth largest country in the world now. Soon.
Ji,
So
Partha-Sarthi, respond to Ajit Ranade. India seeks to be a great power. Is president of the G20, we must show that we have a heart and give basic humanitarian aid. It's the least a country aspiring to be a world power can do.
Well, we have to we live in a real world. When you're talking about India, do you know the way the United States treats Cuba? So let's be real and not live in a fool's paradise. The fact of the matter is that yes, we want good relations with Pakistan. Yes, there are lots of good people in Pakistan. I have lived there. They're friendly. But it is ruled by a military establishment. That military establishment has nothing in its heart other than to cause harm to India. Yes, you may have an odd man like General Bajwa who thinks otherwise. But the bulk of the Pakistan military is focused on us. Next point is, let us, even on trade, let us be real. It is Pakistan who is banning Indian exports. We offered them a free trade area. The rest of South Asia is a part of that free trade area. It is Pakistan alone which is sabotaging free trade in South Asia. So let us be real. I have, as I said, a lot of friends in Pakistan. I wish the friends and people well. But they have an establishment which is hell-bent on creating problems. And talking of trade, you heard Bilawal Bhutto? It was his father his mother who sort of was the only one who opened out, but the Pakistan establishment didn't.
Ali Sarwar Naqvi, your sense of how the hold of the Pakistani military changes as a consequence of this crisis. Does the Pakistani military strengthen its hold even more on Pakistani society and state, if that at all is possible, given the tentacles they already have? Or does it loosen because people realize that the military has been overfed, it's corrupt, and therefore they start pushing back, and the army also starts pulling back a little towards their barracks because they realize that anger against them on the streets is mounting?
Well, I don't know. This whole thing about the military has been exaggerated enormously. I think the economic crisis has nothing to do with the military. And you know, the military has no role to play in the economic crisis. So if we are discussing the economic crisis, then that is purely civilian. And
not really. Look at the spends in
it's-
Pakistan as a percentage of the GDP on the military. Compare it to a country like India or other
the
democracies, and
military
you
budget
realize
has
that
been-
Pakistan's economic priorities have been warped. That the military has been fattening
No,
itself,
but-
and part of the consequences that Pakistan are dealing with is because of the excessive budgets of the military.
Mr. Rahul, the military budget has been coming down since the last 10 years, and it is much less than what it used to be as a percentage of the GDP. So if you want to look at facts, please look at facts the right way. You can't just assume that the military has a huge budget, it's fat, it's corrupt, and all that. So, you know, this is a caricature of the military which is not entirely in tune with reality. I think the economic crisis is what we are discussing, and that has nothing to do with the military.
Sushant, didn't you buy that for a moment, that this is an economic crisis unlinked to the military, unlinked to Pakistan's choices or priorities? Deal with this, and it needs to be dealt with only from an economic prism?
No, I don't. Simply because one is, of course, the direct cost that the military inflicts on Pakistan. And it's much more than what the Pakistani gentleman is saying. Because a lot of the expenses incurred on the military are hidden through some very innovative accounting practices by the Pakistanis. And I could go into that, but I don't think you will have the time for that. But so that is one, is the direct part. The second is the indirect portion. One, the kind of instability that the military's influence in Pakistani politics instills into the system, injects into the system. So, you know, every civilian government is constantly looking over its shoulder. It does not have a security of tenure. Not a single prime minister has managed to complete his term. So there is that general interference in the politics of the country. And then, of course, is the national security policies which the military makes. For example, this entire jihad factory which Pakistan has become. Who created this? Who started this jihad factory? The Pakistan Army.
We are not a
And the
jihad
Pakistan
factory.
Army has been running this jihad factory, and this has damaged Pakistan much more than anything else has damaged economically, politically, socially, culturally, right? So somebody has to take the fall for that. Now, the Pakistani guy will not do it because, you know, he is living in Pakistan. And he's probably not going to be honest enough to admit that. But will that not fall on the head of the military? And finally, the kind of adventurism that the army has done.
Okay.
Not only against India, in Afghanistan, in Iran, there have been cases where the Pakistani ISI has been involved in terrorism in Bosnia and in other places. They've busted UN sanctions out there. They've done all kinds of things. So someone has to take the fall for that. Obviously, the easiest thing to do it is put it on the civilians and absolve the military of all of that.
Okay, so you've heard different points of view. As always on the news track, I don't tell you what to think. We have different points of view across the spectrum, which you've heard. I leave it to you to decide whether India should sit on the riverside, have popcorn as Pakistan drowns, or actually throw a rope.